So hi everyone, I'm Brigitta, and I'm the Executive Director of Montana World Trade Center. I want to welcome you all to our Going Global webinar today with focus on the Gulf Cooperation Council and special emphasis on Oman. As some of you may know, there are about 300 World Trade Centers in 100 countries around the globe. And as an organization, we believe in prosperity for all through trade. We understand the importance of offering forums like this, as well as technical training related to international trade in order to build bridges, to increase understanding and mutually beneficial trade and investment. I'd like to welcome my colleagues from two other World Trade Centers who are joining us here today. World Trade Center Delaware and World Trade Center Kansas City are represented. And of course, I'm very pleased to welcome our speaker this morning, Zubeida Alawi, to initiate this discussion about GCC and specific focus on Oman. I believe that we are very happy to email any of our participants a full bio for Zubeida. If you would like, just let us know. But let me just touch on a couple bullets from her bio right now. She's founder and director of Alawi Global Studio. It's a woman-owned small business with extensive experience working in visual and strategic communication. She's got offices in Bozeman and Miami. She's an Omani American and a graduate of Savannah College of Art and Design with a master's degree in business design management, bachelor's in advertising, strategic comms, and an associate degree in international studies, including the Arabic language. She was a 2020 MIT Solve mentor and speaker at Geneva Peace Week Women Program. And lest you think she has been resting on her laurels with that resume, she also co-founded Loma, which is a Montana-based health technologies SaaS platform. She holds a patent for real-time safety reporting and analytics protocol. And what's that expression? If you want something done, ask a busy person. A bit about the framework of Zubeida's comments today. She'll touch on some key regional data, politics, values, cultures, and then focus in on Oman, which is a member nation of the GCC, for a deeper dive into that nation's economic sectors, business environment, import needs, and I think even the 2040 strategy. Before we bring Zubeida on to share her subject matter expertise with us, I gotta just reiterate a couple housekeeping items. Please type your questions into the chat and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Today, we will have about 10 or 15 minutes for that Q&A. Please do keep your microphone muted and please know that this session is being recorded. So all those folks who really wanted to join but couldn't make it work today can watch it later. So now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Zubeida. Hi, Zubeida.
Hi, thank you so much, Brigitta. Let me share my screen real quick. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right, just checking. First of all, I want to thank everyone for attending and watching this virtual training on Going Global with a focus on Oman and GCC. And I want to thank the World Trade Center and especially the World Trade Center of Montana. First, just a little bit about myself. Brigitta went over my education, but I'm an Omani American. I was born in San Francisco. I grew up in Oman, and I went to school in Oman, learned Arabic language, and then came back to the US for university. I love the contrast of nature, which I always find myself in snowy mountains and then in the desert. So I try to integrate art, culture, and technology into most things that I do in work and life. My team consists of, it's a small group, but some of them are freelancers and some of them are employees. We have directors, thinkers, and creators in our studio. Our graphic designers and content writers are pretty much on almost all projects, but then we also have researchers and digital social media campaign directors and things like that. Oh. A little bit about my studio. I launched Alawi Global in 2012 as a freelancer myself while I was in school. And then I kind of upgraded in 2016 to strategic communication and design thinking. And then in 2018, everybody saw a big pivot in business and I started working with startups, and I learned about the SBIR research program, which opened a lot of doors nationally and internationally. And I worked with a few startups, some medical tech startups, which led me to the Loma project today, and then also global business strategy. Around 2020, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of businesses take a pivot into a new direction, looking at new ways to conduct strategy or manage their employees and their clients because of COVID-19. And a lot of organizations started requesting long-term, 18 months programs and roadmaps to figure out how to navigate this new unknown pandemic. And then I think now they've created new frameworks to how they conduct business, which is part of this whole Zoom culture too. Our vision is to be the leading global public relations firm that we specialize in innovation and intercultural communication. So when I talk about intercultural communication and culture in itself, I don't mean culture as in the country or or the type of person. It's more nuanced to the meaning of culture as the company culture or the life or the consumer culture. So, for example, bee farmers have their own way of doing business, own way of communicating, own way of living, and then like people who use dating apps or people who are medical B2B business workers. So culture as in the smaller nuances, target audience way. We have our strategy is divided into 3 different categories, I would think, and I kind of clustered them together. Some of our strategy are workshops. So we have discovery and ideation workshops, which could be from anything from rebranding to developing a product or a service, to the middle part, which is direct business strategy. And we're going to be talking about the global business strategy component today. And then also there's the public relation, which kind of integrates into most of these other ones. So what is global business strategy? It's different than global business services, which focuses a lot on logistics and other kind of services. So global business strategy is a way to unlock your business potential and kind of expand your product or service into other greater markets. There's 2 components to the global business strategy, which we look at. One is the in-country value proposition, which comes from a directive that the government puts out in their strategy plan. And that has the focus on jobs, like a percentage of jobs growth for the Omani citizens or expats. And then there's also a social and cultural component, which is your PR view on things. We develop strategies for this based on local insights, government advisors, industry leaders, and all these things combined enhance your in-country value proposition. I wanted to show this. It's kind of like a hyper diagram of a business model canvas, if you guys are familiar with that. I really like to use it in our business strategy because we kind of always come back to 3 components, which is partnering, upskilling, and flexibility of many different elements. So if you look at the 2 ends, there's customer segments and key partners. Those are elements that we work on a lot. Like we're developing a lot of relationships with key partners in different industries in Oman, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. And then the customer segments, it comes from your business or product or service, but we also kind of take a deep dive into understanding really what are these customer segments exactly, and then we work on some strategies with that. The value proposition should come from your company directly, and then the channels of communication comes from the government. Here, I wanted to kind of go through the public relations strategy because it kind of connects to your ICV. So we always start with a target audience analysis, and then from that we create personas, which is the preferred channels of communication, technology, motivations, frustrations, and goals of your target audience. Then we use that to couple with data-driven solutions, which is kind of leads to all three, like all the way down this list of public relations strategy things. The GCC, so this is a symbol of the GCC. It's 6 countries. I'm sure most of you are familiar with all of them, except Oman. A lot of people wonder where they are. So the GCC is similar concept to the EU on trade, tariffs, and reciprocity between the GCC countries. They established a charter in the 25th of May, 1981. And the objective is to coordinate government and trade efforts between the countries and the world. Here's a short list of advantages of being in the GCC. There's special visa programs, there's trade agreements between the countries, there's infrastructure support between the countries, investment opportunities that you could diversify the risk, and then also there's an assurance of political stability between all the countries. The UAE is always in the news, so I wanted to highlight a little bit about them. So the GCC collectively is working very hard to attract technology companies, R&D incubators, and real estate developers, amongst a lot of other industries that we'll look at today. There is internal competition between the GCC member states, but also competition with the world. So I wanted to highlight the Golden Visa, which is a 10-year visa program if you open a business in the UAE, and the 10 years allows you to build a life without fear of visa expiration, and it has a lot of other great incentives such as healthcare and access to other like education. Here's a few more highlights of the GCC collectively. We have, we're showing the examples of lifestyle, entertainment, art, and culture. Here I put Kevin Hart because he's playing next week, I believe, in Saudi Arabia. And it just shows how they're opening their doors to Western cultures and things like that. On the bottom right, I wanted to show you guys the Louvre Museum from Paris. They actually leased, they did a 15 or 30-year lease, I'm not sure, of the name, and they're exchanging art between UAE and Paris. And I got to see the Napoleon and the Achaemenid statues there. Also, I wanted to highlight the Fight Island, which was created by the UFC because UAE had the best COVID response to allowing their systems to work properly. I cannot go on without mentioning a mega project in UAE, in Saudi Arabia, which is the Line. And I'm sure a lot of you saw this in the news and all over the place. They have great PR. So the Line is an eco village, but it's not just one village. They're working on 4 at the same time. And you'll see a lot of these new sustainable cities being launched all across the Middle East and the GCC. And I just put a little bit of information about their logo there. More focused on Oman, there is a consortium agreement between the GCC countries. So if you're on a project, you're most likely to collaborate with other ones as well, as in a network. So Oman has 2 very strategic ports, Duqm and Sohar. They're also, those are considered mega projects. Sohar is completed, Duqm is being built right now, and there's massive opportunities in that area. And then also they're looking at green hydrogen and energy transition. The 2 ports are considered free zones. And then also I wanted to highlight the Wave, which is one of Oman's like initial advanced cities. I was just there last week. Okay, some country facts about Oman. It is a peninsula right off the Arabian Sea. The size is about the distance between South Carolina and DC. There's a lot of mountains that run into the coastline, and it just has a lot of beautiful nature. You'll see the flag, the red is for wars and that they were in a long, long time ago. White is for peace, green is for nature. And then we have the khanjar, which is the official emblem or symbol of Oman, which is a dagger and 2 swords. This is worn ceremonially as a belt. So you'll see the crown prince on the bottom left. He is wearing it as a belt, as a ceremonial garb. And then his mother, which is the first lady, is on the right, and she's wearing very beautiful saturated colors. So these are examples of how the Omanis actually dress all the time. I wanted to highlight something very important to the Omani people, which is the Sultan. He's the monarch and head of state and head of government in Oman. He's the most powerful position in the country. The Sultan of Oman is a member of the Abu Saidi dynasty, which has been ruling the country since the mid 18th century. On the left is the current Sultan. His name is Sultan Haytham bin Tariq. And then you'll see these pictures together in every hotel, every business. Like you'll see this official portrait a lot. So Sultan Qaboos, when I was growing up, he was a sultan, and he just passed away in 2020. Oh, a tidbit about that. There's only 2 sultans on earth, Brunei and Oman, and you'll never see them at the same place at the same time. So this is a little bit about the company, not the company, but the government structure. It's really important to have an idea of how the government works, especially if you're going to go in there for some business. On the left, it shows the Sultan, who's the monarch, and then the Diwan court underneath of him. And then underneath that is a palace office that manages all the above. Then kind of more focus on what we are more interested in and where we live is the cabinet and the council of ministries and the advisory boards. So every industry has its own minister, and every minister has an undersecretary and director general. So these are the people you're probably going to be talking to depending on the size of your project. So it's not uncommon for you to sign a contract with the minister himself. There are a lot of countries that Oman has a strategic alliance with, but I wanted to highlight these 4. Of course, the United States. So the United States shares a strong bilateral relationship with a joint commit with the U.S. as a joint commitment for security, stability, prosperity in the region. In 2019, they signed a U.S.-Oman free trade agreement, and that covers a lot of different things like customs and duties and business. I wanted to highlight Germany because there's a lot of technology comes from Germany, and they have GU Tech, which is the biggest engineering school in Oman. And then also there's India, which has been trading with Oman since the beginning of time. A little bit about some country facts. It's an Islamic country, but has a very cosmopolitan population that supports many places of worship. So you could find the Catholic Church, or you could find a Hindu temple without a problem. The Islamic festivals and holidays fall under a lunar calendar. So in case you see on some business documents, there's going to be 2 dates on the document. One is the Islamic lunar calendar date, and one is the regular one that we use every day. I would say because it's an Islamic country, I would avoid wearing excessive revealing clothing in public, but it doesn't mean that you have to cover up and wear a head wrap, because you could just go as you are, business or casual. There is 4.5 million people, and I think half of them are Arab citizens and half of them are expats and other people. So I just wanted to put a few more things, like 1 rial is $2.6, so you could always remember that and do the math as you're in there doing business. The GDP is a very important point here because it's 162 billion, but 46% of the GDP is oil and gas. And the government's strategic objective as of 2 years ago is to take that 46% down to 9%. And this is where it opens up a huge gap for business. They're looking for, they want to diversify into metals, mining, tourism, transportation, a few other things. 80% of the population, just for target audience, they're active online. And most people, the workforce is educated and bilingual. Here's where I spend a lot of time, is the Oman 2040 plan. The Omani 2040 plan really outlines step by step, and it makes it very easy for people to figure out what they need to do to kind of check these boxes and start and run your business in Oman, especially for all the new open industries. A lot of the ministries that we talked about earlier have changed names, and positions were moved around a lot since the new king, the new sultan. And one that I wanted to highlight here, because it's relevant to us, is the Ministry of Higher Education. And now it's higher education, research, and innovation. So that research and innovation part is it's very interesting, because now it's going to bring in a lot of technology. And some of their national strategies for this R&D technology is transportation and energy. but also there's new hedge funds popping up in Oman and in the region. Over here is your vision indicators that you could find in your 2040 plan. The project I'm working on right now is in renewable energy, and we hit 7 of the 10 vision indicators on our strategy, which is really great. It's like if you hit a few of them, it's great. If you hit more, it's fantastic. And this goes back to the partnering, upskilling, and flexibility of your project. Here's another component from the 2040 plan. I just wanted to highlight one part. Is the Oman, like the Oman is a society that is proud of its identity and culture and committed to its citizens. So you always see that over and over and over. They're very proud, very patriotic people, and they want to hear how awesome your country is as well. For the in-country value strategy, we work a lot with on the left side, the key stakeholders. We developed ICV initiatives, the Omanization plan, which is the percentage of workers who are citizens and the percentage who are traveling back and forth between the US or England. We also hit on some cultural values and community empowerment efforts. And then I kind of broke down the value chain that usually comes with most businesses, highlighting the top parts we would help with and the bottom parts, it comes from the business himself. There is actually a value chain. Actually, no, there's a 2040 implementation and follow-up committee that would help people guide them through your strategy as well. So Oman and the GCC have a great opportunity to leapfrog into this technological advancement because they didn't have a lot of infrastructure already built with a technology framework. So that's why we're seeing all these amazing smart cities just come from scratch. I highlighted on the left here is the primary industries that Oman is looking for business. It's obviously renewable, fisheries, and one that I'm conducting a little bit of research on right now, health tech, education, agriculture. And then just from those primary industries, I pulled a list of supporting industries that I found to be growing in parallel with the ones that they have a primary focus on. And like we are up there as in public relations, but there's a lot of other ones that you guys could identify with. I made this little chart because we have Kansas, Delaware, and Montana. So I put on the left all the growth industries, and you guys could go through and kind of check the boxes and decide like which ones are best for your World Trade Center or for your businesses that are interested in going global. Here is a quick slide of an event I went to for energy transition. It was hosted by the German embassy at one of the art galleries for a very prominent businessman, and it kind of hits on travel and tourism and then also energy transition because they have a lot of new transportation frameworks that will enable the tourism industry to grow. This is a little bit important, I think, because understanding the Omani economy, when you go into countries, I've heard a few times they asked me, do you know why American companies fail in the Middle East? And we had to figure out these answers. And I think it's because that we realize it's because the type of relationship and the type of business is very different in different countries. So the networking and partnership in Oman and the Middle East, they really want to build loyalty, trust, and relationship and partner versus a transactional business approach to conducting any kind of operations. Because they have a lot of important family values and things like that. I wanted to kind of show also that the target audience is completely different in the Middle East because their information is not readily available online or through Meta or any of the other things. They really care a lot about family values and social hierarchy, which is a little bit different than here or in Europe. And because privacy is important, the influencer marketing strategy is completely different. So the way you would see influencers now on Instagram is completely different than the way you would see influencers there. So I could explain all that when we have more time. But respecting these small little values, it goes a really long way in getting you through the door and to signing a contract. No business is without challenges. I'm here, I want to show you guys some challenges that we identified. But also, when you look at a SWOT, every challenge is actually an opportunity. So when you take the challenges, dissect it, figure it out, solve it. And this is what the in-country value strategy team has been doing for the past 2 years. So one example is the bureaucracy that was very hard to get people to buy solar panels, for example. And so they decided now to change policy and change procedures to make it easier to access solar panels. But they're also doing that. They're analyzing every single industry, and every ministry is having a reset and a restructure based on the 2040 plan. So an example for the opportunities in the SWOT, it would be Amazon doesn't really exist in the Middle East too much. It goes from the US to Dubai and then travels around. So because of the pandemic, they launched their first Uber Eats style app, which is Talabat. So now there's just one. So imagine an entire country using one app for delivering food. So there's those kind of things. Government incentives. I wanted to highlight a few of the government incentives for US citizens and what Oman is actually looking for. They're seeking to diversify its economy through manufacturing, logistics, tourism, mining, and fishery. So in fishery, they're actually looking for, I was just asked this other day, like a plant to can the fish, because they have huge tuna across the entire shore. So these are open industries that if there's any kind of talent or resources from the US, they're very welcoming to hearing about it. And I wanted to highlight the public-private partnership, because you could actually write a proposal and propose a new project that falls under one of these industries, and they would consider it and figure out how to fit it in. And then there's, of course, other things like lower government fees and things like that. Over here, I wanted to have a little bit of kind of show you guys some cool things that kind of connects Montana and Oman, the equestrian life with the horses. It's used a lot in Oman, but also it's from Sur. Sur is where my family is actually from. And then here, I wanted to highlight a lot of beautiful ecotourism sites in Montana, and contrast it with a bunch of also beautiful ecotourism in Oman. So there's Dimaniat Island, which was, it wasn't open to the public for a long time, and it opened about 4 or 5 years ago to specialized tours where you could find the biggest turtles in the world. I wanted to, like, ecotourism is one of the fastest growing industries across the entire Middle East. So anything that has to do with ecotourism or tourism in general would be like absolutely welcomed. There's a lot of untouched areas, like such as the dunes and the stone forts that were closed and they just opened. So because of Montana is one of the coolest places for gear in the US, I think, because we camp and we spend a lot of time outdoors, I pulled these pictures together, and it's kind of hard to say, okay, is this Oman or is this Montana? And they're all actually Oman. There is a big demand for really awesome camping gear, because camping just shot up, and you'll see kids, moms, families, everybody going out and spending a lot more time in nature in the past 2 years. And then there's special sites like Jebel Akhdar, and then there's different beautiful environments. And then here's the last thing I wanted to show you guys is also another parallel, which is the Omanis and everybody in the Middle East pretty much really values their value of their steak and their coffee. And it's exactly the same in Montana. So even though you'll be across the world in a whole different place, there's going to be a lot of familiar things that you would love when you're there on business. So I went through that pretty quickly. I wanted to thank everyone for being here, but also I wanted to give you guys my contact information and take some questions. I prepared a survey. It's for industry insights. It's a 5-question quick survey. You could just scan the screen, and then also my contact information, which would go straight to your phone. And that's it.
Thanks, Zubeida. I think you can stop screen share on that.
Okay, 1 second.
We'll come back. So
I think at the time I was going a little fast through it, so
covered a lot of ground. I know that we were talking a little bit before the session began, and as you know, from living in Montana, predominantly small and medium-sized enterprises populate this state. And I know there are a number of them, certainly in Delaware. And I just wondered if you could talk with us a little bit about, so if you're an SME, you're seeking government contracting opportunities in Oman, where do you start? And also the scale of it seems maybe a little out of reach. So I'm just wondering if there's opportunities to collaborate with larger entities that may be engaged in project that might need some specific expertise or service export that we could provide.
That's a really great question because it just came up recently. So if we look at the energy transition or the hydrogen projects, Oman just launched a new bidding system like a couple months ago. And one of the requirements for the bidding system is to create a consortium. So they're very much seeing and acknowledging that the small businesses have a lot of value. So if you could get in on one of the consortiums or find your own consortium and put it together and then bid together, they encourage that very much. For the government contracting or bidding system is kind of like the UN bids or kind of like the DoD bids, same structure where you have a portal and you put your bio in and things like that. But I think it's not as big. Like what they're asking for is maybe 10 pages versus like a 30-page document, and then they start their due diligence.
So I just want to clarify. The consortiums that you're talking about, is there actually, is the Omani government helping to bring those together then? Or are you talking about, those consortiums coming together separately and then approaching for a particular contract?
Actually, both. So when we look at the ministries and then the board of advisors and the selection committee, so in each ministry, so we could take an example from somebody in the audience, like say you're a farmer, you're selling apples and you have tractors for sale, both, right? So you would go to the ministry, to the director general, or to one of the advisory boards in your industry. So the Ministry of Agriculture, you could call them, and then they would help guide you through it. So it's all divided up into the ministries by industry. And then in the ministry, they have committees that would help prep you and answer any questions. And we'd be happy to open any doors or introduce anybody to the right people within Oman. And then they work hand in hand with the Americans to bring business in.
Great. Yeah. I'm not seeing other questions in the chat, but I have a few more questions. So Cassandra, you stop me if you see something come in that we need to address. So I actually kind of sticking with the government contract kind of theme there. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about specific opportunities that might exist in relation to the port development that you talked about, and that that could be hard goods exports or service exports. I wonder if you could comment on that.
Yeah, for sure. So the northern port is a Sahar port. It's mainly exporting oil and gas, and I think plastics go out from there too. And also they have a steel factory up there. But the southern port is more interesting, I think, because it's Duqm, and it's under construction, and so parts of it are developed and parts of it is under construction. They just announced, this is really cool because it would parallel with some stuff Montana has. They just announced they're building a space research center. So Oman happened to be the 5th best place to launch your rockets from. So we didn't know that until a couple of months ago when they made the announcement. So now if there's space systems, rockets, so you wanted to know the industries for export or which for import?
Yes, sure. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so agriculture, they're very interested in agriculture. So if you were to export from Oman, I would say probably coffee or dates, and or maybe different stones or like marble. But if you were to import, I think that the Omanis are very interested in really interesting things that they do not have. So it's basically industry specific. If I were to import from Montana, it would be all the gear, the camping gear and the ultralights and things like that. But it's really based on the industry. So that's why I put the little survey there. If anybody has any questions, anybody who attended or watched this, I'm going to give you guys like a 30-minute meeting if you want. And if you answer the survey and request it, you could just give me some questions about your industry and I could give you some guidance on that.
So you pivoted to talking a little bit about kind of consumer goods there. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We make a lot of great outdoor gear here in Montana. We're pretty proud of it. It would be great if we could end up exporting some of that to Oman. I guess I want to circle back a little bit and talk about kind of the social media space and how that impacts marketing for products that might be like even like a software as a service export. Maybe you could comment on those things a little bit.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So if we were to use social media influencers in Oman, or even any place in the GCC, it's a little different because the social media influencers in the US, they're showing themselves, it's all about them and then their product usually. But in Oman, they don't like to really show themselves on camera as much. They really focus on the features of what they're selling or what they're advertising. So it goes a little bit longer, the impact of the product for the audience. So the way to reach this, so there's different PR groups that you could request, or we have lists that you could directly request social media influencers in the industry. And yeah, so.
Thanks for that. Hey, we actually do have a couple of questions that came through here, so I'll go to those now. Sharon is asking, keeping the culture in mind, is it difficult to a totally woman-owned and run business to operate in Oman? Well, you have your own, so you tell us.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's actually really welcoming, and it's great. I think you get more attention and good attention. They're like they're surprised, but also they're welcoming and happy about it. So every time I talk to people about, like, most of the people who work in my company are women also. It just happened that way. And we are able to connect a lot in the ministries because the minister might be a male, but a lot of the supporting staff are females, and you could connect with them really well. And one thing I noticed that was really cool is that Oman put the Minister of Education, Research, and Innovation is a woman. So it's not a barrier at all. It's actually a feature. So
that's great. Yeah. Was that a recent appointment?
Yes, it was. It was just a couple months ago.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Cassandra was asking, with loyalty and relationships being so important, how much does brand loyalty related to the how much does brand loyalty? I think she means how important is brand loyalty to the Omanis, and how does that play to big brands versus small brands or businesses? Are there opportunities for both?
Yes. Of course, there's opportunities for both because they're very hungry for a lot of things. So brand loyalty is interesting. If you come with a product or a service that's European or US made, they're very excited about using it and trying it, because the US, made in USA, it automatically communicates valuable product. It's kind of like something that because they would kind of contrast that with made in China or made in India, which is most of the stuff there is like made in India or China. So whenever they see something with a made in Germany or made in Italy, I think that they're more inclined to purchase that than whatever they have usually. And especially because now everybody's entering the social media world, they want to show off things that they have that's different. So anything that's different and new is a good. You'll be surprised that most of the kids, there is no Target or Walmart in Oman, but all the little kids running around, they are telling me, what is Walmart like? How's Target? And it's like, how do you guys know this? It's because they know what's going on in the US, because of the internet makes the world a lot smaller. So if there were a Target to open up, everybody would be so excited about going.
That's so funny. It's yeah. So Target is a constant destination for my teenage son and his friends, and then Walmart is a constant destination for my in-laws. It seems very generational, but It's funny that they know about it even though it doesn't exist. If it did exist, all the teenagers would apparently be at Target. Just
Yeah, even the elementary school kids,
Yeah.
everybody would.
pretty much. So actually, Kurt Burgess asked us a question here, and he's hoping you can provide a snapshot of Oman's current healthcare and health tech footprint, and what are some of the gaps you're experiencing or that are being experienced there? Emerging innovation, access to global innovation. Can you comment on that?
Oh, yes, for sure. So because of COVID and because of UAE's rapid and perfect response, I think they got #1 in the world for COVID response is UAE. And they're so close to Oman that they were pulling, they're kind of learning from each other, the whole GCC thing. Oman has hospitals, they have pharmacies. You can find anything in the Omani pharmacies that you would find at CVS or Walgreens here in the US. Anything. And then also everybody there speaks English, all the doctors and pharmacists and people speak English. I don't really know about the surgery centers or cancer or any kind of like really kind of big, more serious. If it's something that, say, you know, like if you're cold, or if you hurt yourself, or if you break your leg or things like that, they have top-notch services. But I think they're looking for kind of resources on cancer or Alzheimer's or diabetes, things like that. They're not as advanced in the research segment. I did identify one gap with some family members there who had long COVID that kind of lasted a long time. And they're seeing American and European social media with the IV therapies and the vitamins, and that does not exist, zero. So they're very interested in wellness. So vitamins, kind of, do you guys know about the IV therapy? Yeah, things like that. It does not exist. And actually somebody asked me to do a little bit of research on how to acquire those vitamins and the what is saline bags and put that together. So that's in demand. I think the closest place, somebody I knew flew to Kuwait to get, because there's one of those wellness centers in Kuwait. So they flew there to get an IV bag that we could just pick up the phone and have somebody come over. So,
yeah, I don't know about the specific treatment for long COVID that's being
oh
deployed,
yeah,
but I do know that well, for example, in Montana, we have a number of different sort of nutraceutical and functional foods types firms. So good to know that there's market opportunity there.
for sure. Yeah.
So let's see, we've got a couple other ones here. Oh, let me ask this one. In regards to pharmaceuticals, are American-made products more sought after, even though they'll likely be more expensive than, for example, like Indian-made products?
Yes, however, there's some hurdles to jump through to get any kind of medical products into Oman. You have to get approval from the Ministry of Health, and they have to have samples and interview. So there is a demand for it, for sure. And they feel like paying more for something, it doesn't mean that they want, it just means that it has more value, you know? So yes, there's demand, but there's also hurdles to jump through to get it approved through the ministry.
Yeah, I mean, I think those hurdles exist in every country.
yes.
I mean, every country wants to make sure to protect our citizens, and they've got a regulatory regime that needs to be addressed. I don't necessarily think that's a deal killer for sure.
Mhm.
So Kristen with Senator Daines' office is actually asking, what are the most popular ecotourism locations in Oman?
I love your question. Okay, so there is the dunes in Badia, which is there's an empty quarter between Oman and Saudi Arabia, and there's a lot of dunes, and it's exactly like the movie. If you guys saw it, if not, it's just like the sea of, and I would say that's #1. It's the closest climate to Mars. So there's NASA people out there studying. It's really interesting. Then after that, there's Dimaniyat Island, which is the untouched turtle sanctuary. Some of the biggest turtles in the world are there. They just opened, but they have certain times that you can go diving there. So those are the two big ones, but there's also certain mountains. There's specialized resorts at the Straits of Hormuz, which is on the north tip. But yeah, I think those are the three most interesting places. Oh, and just yesterday I found out that they're building a new tourism city north of Sur. So if you look at Oman, the map, it peaks out and then it comes back in. So in that peak, there's about 30-minute drive north. They're building an entire new tourism site because it's just the water is amazing. So
Zubeida, before the session formally began, we were chatting a little bit about a conference that's happening actually in Saudi right now. You're very familiar with it. It has a lot to do with startups and AI and the whole venture kind of ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about the startup ecosystem that exists in Oman? I guess start there. Just what does that look like?
okay, so I think the startup ecosystem in Saudi and UAE is a lot stronger, but there's one big accelerator in Oman that was actually they had someone from the American State Department running it for a couple years, and so they have one accelerator, government sponsored. They have a few. I actually toured it twice, and I talked to a lot of the startups there. There was a lot of software as a service products. So it's very new. It's just starting out. There is a few funds that started developing because they're seeing how startups are thriving in UAE, and they're like, okay, well, we want to also compete. So I know that I'm kind of tracking it. There's a few new VC funds. And I think because those new VC funds that just propped up within this past year, there's going to be a startup ecosystem kind of growing faster than it has been in the past like 20 years. And then also the ICV strategy is pushing for R&D. So you have like a lot of different pressures kind of going to lift the startup ecosystem. And of course, it always goes back to depending on the industry. If it's something in demand, you could find money for it. But if it's something that's very abstract, it would have to fall under the umbrella of one of the other R&D topics.
Yeah, I actually, in your opening comments, I think you talked a little bit about SBIR. And for those of you who are on this call that may not know that, that's Small Business Innovative Research Funding. So that's the US federal government supporting basic research and commercialization of new technologies. So does the government in Oman have similar programs that they're deploying to help seed, innovation and research and commercialization?
Yeah, I think more of the commercialization, but they're depending on the ICV strategies to fill the research part of it. So for the energy transition project, we would like, or any kind of ICV project, they expect big companies and big industries to propose something that would help society. And most of them are kind of going for an R&D facility. So if, so the R&D comes from public-private collaboration, and then the commercialization would be helped through the ministry as well.
Good to know. Thank you. Yeah. So another question came in here from Deanna, and she thanks you. If social media and direct marketing is not preferred, would you be able to comment on or recommend best practices for marketing Montana as a potential location for expansion in the US?
Well, I think that social media is preferred. It's just not the same way. So in the US, I would kind of show myself more. In Oman, they would show the product or the location. Like if you look up Badia or Dimaniyat, you won't see too many people. You'll see all the nature and the beauty. But they also use different kinds of social media. So Snapchat is the biggest used social media in all of Oman. But in America, I believe it's Instagram. TikTok, and then Instagram. So TikTok didn't pick up as much there. Everybody loves Snapchat because it kind of offers a little bit of privacy. So I would market with Snapchat, then Instagram, and then your website, and then actual real events. Like you'll see a lot of people out and about. Coffee shops is the best place to market because our coffee shops are open for breakfast probably, but they have coffee shops that run till 2 a.m. So instead of people going to the bar to hang out, they literally go and hang out at coffee shops all night.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
We might do that in Montana, but there comes a point during the day where we transition to our microbreweries for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, they don't have those.
So we have just probably time for one more question, and Kurt put one on here. Are you aware of any startup innovation activity around F1 in Bahrain? For example, sports medicine, fan engagement, social media apps, and so on. And by the way, I don't know what F1 is, so if you need clarification, we can ask Kurt.
I do. Is it racing or what is it? What is F1? It's racing. Okay, I thought so. All right. Sports is, of course, because of Qatar now, everybody in the Middle East, not just the GCC, they're hyped on sports. I was asking a few questions like, how does the high school sports compete or the university sports? They don't have that competitive system in place yet. Basketball just started. So imagine like if it just started, the opportunity growth. So you asked about F1, so it was racing, right? Let's see. I don't know exactly, but I know if it has to do with the sport or outdoors, it's probably going to be good. But you could ask me in my survey. I'll look into it. I'll ask one of the guys.
That sounds good. You're a sport fielding questions all across different industries and without knowing what was coming at you. I appreciate that. One more thing before my closing comments. I mean, there are some countries around the world where you can do business pretty well without a personal introduction. You don't really need it. But how is it in Oman or the GCC countries? What's your take on that?
Okay.
Seems like you might really need a personalized intro.
Personalized intro is always really good, but it definitely opens doors. It's like their due diligence and their kind of like you would vouch for this person that you're introducing, so you want to make sure they're somebody of value. But if you do not have that and you just kind of started from scratch, I would say pick up the phone and call the ministry and then ask for a industry advocate. And then you would probably have somebody helping you. That's the approach I would take if I didn't know anybody. But if you know somebody, it's a lot more powerful to go through a known businessman or somebody who's working already there, which is kind of like what we're doing. We're kind of building a relationship with different ministries so that we could open those doors and let everybody kind of go in.
What a good segue. Yes, I was going to say that. Not only do we have a free trade agreement with Oman, it is an English-speaking country, and you've got a great third party who's very happy to make some intros for you and help you address that market. So Zubeida, I really want to thank you for spending some time with us today. I think we've just scratched the surface on opportunity that exists there, and I absolutely encourage you all to fill out that quick little survey that she sent out to you, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us or Zubeida with specific questions. And with that, I'm going to bid you adieu. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.